I'll make sure I'm on
All
the
right.
the CIDER channel and not the Soundbites channel.
All right. Do you want me to start, or we want to give it a few more minutes?
Well, we can give it a couple more minutes. And we get Facebook
All
running.
right. All right.
So CIDER's running, Facebook is running.
When you
All
say
right.
running, you mean that we're being streamed on Facebook as well as YouTube?
Yep.
Isn't that amazing? So how? So I'd have to open Facebook to see that and see how many. Does it show how many people are watching?
I think so, somewhere, yeah.
Well,
someone
I'll
has
leave.
shared it already. That's interesting.
I will.
Well, it says there's 12 people right now.
That's Zoom.
11 people.
12. Just to let the board members know, next week I will not be at the meeting.
Okay.
It's our.
All right. Well, while we're waiting a couple minutes here, I will mention something for Ken's benefit that I was going to bring up at the board meeting next week. I stopped in at East High to verify the phone numbers for the evening custodians. And the answer turned out to be there was one, and it was still Yaroslav. And he still has the same phone number I had before. The conversation with Yaroslav is interesting because if something is obvious to him, he doesn't see why it wouldn't be obvious to you. and in these uncertain times, it kind of helps to verify a few things that may be obvious to the people who already know them. But at any rate, what he mentioned, and I did not do a walk around through the school because of, masks and just general COVID nervousness and the rest of it. Right. But in the staff cafeteria, he says that the big electronic screen we were using is no longer there. So that means that if we resume meeting there sometime early next year, who knows, we'll need to use Irwin's projector and a screen. I don't remember, and I wouldn't know whether there would be an old-fashioned just plain screen still in that room. At one point, I think it had one, but I believe, Steve, you've got one too in our
and
arsenal.
The walls are pretty white too. Well, maybe.
Okay. Well, just so you know that.
All right. Very
checking
good.
into that.
Well,
so it looks like there's no obstacle in a sense to us meeting there again.
Well, I have not yet emailed Sheila Watkins Barron to confirm that she has our application, and I don't have an official permit from her yet either, and I'm not pursuing those vigorously at the moment because we decided that pretty much this month and November and December we would stay on Zoom.
Right. So that's fine. All right. All right. Well, let's officially start the meeting. I think it's 7:07. Is that it?
Hang on just a second. Hey, Nick, do you remember offhand what the RGB color code for white is? Is it all zeros or all 255s?
I believe it's all ones. It's FFFF.
Yeah, I need it decimal. I'm getting a black black clock on a black background. Let me set it to ones. RGB. No, it's RGB 0 to 255. I would have thought it was.
Oh, you want? Sorry, RGB.
Yeah.
Yeah. It should be all zeros.
Yeah, it should be. Why am I getting black text? It's very hard to read black text on a black background.
Well, for some people.
Yeah.
Yeah, humans have a problem.
It's hard for me to read black text on a white background.
Maybe all eights.
I don't know why it's not working on the CIDER page because it works on the Soundbites page. Weird. All right, I'll tinker a little, and you guys. Well, actually, no, I have to do the meeting, don't I? So let's change the color RGBs to 255. Maybe it's backwards. Nope, still black on black.
You're muted, Nick.
That's
There you are.
The RGB for white is Octothorpe FFFFFF. So if it actually is octal, excuse me, hex, then 11111111 is just above 000000. And it's dang near black.
Yeah. That's very weird. Can I switch it to here real quick?
That will give you a gray. A 111 will give you a gray because if all the values are the same, then you get a gray value.
Right.
So 001 could give you a white.
Interesting. So I'm trying to do either black text on a white background or white text on a black background, and I can't get it to do either. Somebody changed my encoding. OBS did an update, so I can't get a clock on the screen. Well, I'm guessing it's decimal because it's RGBA paren 0, 0, 0, 0.5. So RGB and an alpha.
Yeah. So RGB would be 255, 255, 255 for white. And the 0.5 would be transparency, or the alpha channel.
Huh. Still showing black on black. Should I move it? Is it below? It's not behind anything. Now it's the top layer. Well, we'll have to use the clock in YouTube. That's really weird.
Can I start?
Yeah.
All right, so it's 7:10. So welcome everybody to our October 13th Apple Cider meeting, Zoom meeting. And our momentous day today was William Shatner in space, Blue Origin, for his 10-minute ride into outer space, Captain Kirk.
Oh, blue.
And
and a New Shepard.
So that's our space news for today, right? So other than that, I guess we'll start off with Steve with his Apple news. He wants to do that, and welcoming Nick, who's going to talk about Raspberry Pi. I hope you have a piece of pie in front of you today. Preferably raspberry, right? So take away, Steve.
The other big sort of momentous thing this week is it was the 42nd anniversary of the publishing of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. So we know 42 is the ultimate answer.
42, there we are.
Yeah. All right, so let me share my web window in Zoom. Share. And I don't want the whole desktop, I just want Safari. Thank you.
While you're doing that, I just want to let everybody know too that we will be doing Zoom meetings until the first of the year, and that we're staying in contact with East High as far as when to come back, like Charlie was talking about. So that's our plan for right now. Start a new year at East High. All right, Steve.
All right, so the new iPhones were officially announced last month, the week after the meeting. We have a couple of new colors. Is my screen making it into Zoom?
Yes.
It's not making it to YouTube. That's interesting. Let me, Safari window. Let me turn that back on. And we'll have to bring that, there we are. So we've got a new blue available in the 13 and 13 mini. I can only show 3 at a time on the compare chart, which is a little annoying. And we have a Sierra blue, a lighter blue, and the gold is a new sort of a lighter gold as well. So and then Starlight is new. So that we have joke that that's how you tell you have the new phone is because it has the new colors. And I have a rocket shooting out of my head. I'm going to turn it that way a little. And so let me bring, actually let's bring the mini on here. Because, so the 4 new phones is the 13 mini, which is the small phone. It has the 5.4-inch screen. And then the 13 regular 13 has the 6.1-inch screen. So the 13 and 13 Pro both have 6.1-inch screens. The main difference between them is that the Pro models have better graphics. So the ProMotion graphics allows it to change the refresh rate of the screen depending on what you're doing. So if you're watching a video with fast motion, it can refresh the screen faster, which is really nice. And if you're just looking at a website, it can slow down the screen refresh so that it doesn't use so much battery. The other main difference between the regular iPhones and the Pro iPhones are the number of cameras. Excuse me. The regular iPhones have 2 cameras, a wide and an ultra wide, and the Pro models add a telephoto camera. They can all do 1080p at 30 frames per second. They can do 4K at 60 frames per second. And Apple's been pushing a lot of new TV commercials showing how amazing the video capture is and how especially independent producers are shooting their movies on iPhone because they have one and you can do some really amazing photography with it. Also, the Pros have a better zoom on it. The Pros have a LiDAR scanner, which makes night mode portraits better. It can autofocus better and gives you better AR. And so that's sort of leading toward new features in the future, where we're going to have even better phone software. They all use the new A15 chip, a 6-core CPU, which has 2 performance cores and 4 efficiency cores. So the previous CPU was 2 performance and 2 efficiency, so that it was a trade-off between performance or speed and efficiency or battery life. So now it can do more to save your battery because it has more efficiency cores, so that will make the battery last longer. The regular iPhone has a 4-core GPU, and the Pros have a 5-core GPU, so the graphics, again, are that much faster. And the battery life, 17 hours of video on the small one, 22 hours on the medium, and 28 hours on the big one. So you can be watching video for more than a day. Ceramic shield. So they've changed from aircraft-grade aluminum to surgical-grade stainless steel for the case. So hopefully that means it will break less. You have a choice between if you want it to be rigid or brittle. So if you drop it, it will crack, or if you drop it, it will dent. So your choice. They have increased the water resistance rating up to 6 meters for 30 minutes. However, this is a resistance rating. It's not waterproof. We've seen people will drop it in the sink for 5 seconds, and it damages it because the water got inside. It's frustrating that way. We've got
Steve.
Pardon?
What is the meaning of the 6 meters for half an hour thing? If 5 minutes in the sink will damage it.
It's a laboratory condition rating. So you put it in sterile water at 6 meters for 30 minutes, and it will be okay. So it's almost worthless in the real world, but it does give you a little bit of hope that if it does fall into, drop it in the sink or heaven forbid the toilet, you may, it may survive. There were some early problems with the early iPhones where if you were holding it in your hand during a workout, your sweat would get in the charging port and damage the phone. And so we keep hearing that's one of Apple's sort of hidden agendas is to remove all the ports from the phone. It's one reason they took the lightning or the headphone jack off, because they don't want to have any ports, which means a hole in the phone. And that can let outside dirt, debris, and water get into it. But it does allow you to compare phone to phone based on the IP rating. I think this is IP67 now, so you can compare different phones with different ratings to see if one phone rates better than the other. It's kind of a little bit like miles per gallon. It's a statistic that the industry uses. Your mileage may vary. It is compatible with MagSafe chargers. There is a rumor that eventually Apple will remove the charging port from the computer, again, to help seal the innards of the phone, and everything will be MagSafe. So far, that has not happened. Capacities, the standard iPhones go to 512, the iPhone Pros go to 1 terabyte. Super whiz bang extra amazing. 800 nits on the regular phone, 1,000 nits on the Pro phone. So again, the Pro has a better screen, a little bit heavier. Yeah, here's the IP rate. So it's an IP68 rating now. So you can look up the standards and see what it means. Let's see. We talked about the camera. The Pro also can shoot in RAW format, Apple Pro RAW, which a lot of cinematographers do use and edit in Pro RAW on Final Cut. Let's see, video recording we talked about. The front camera, sometimes called the selfie camera, is 12 megapixels on all of them, and it does have the true depth sensor, so it can do the portrait mode. Let's see, the carriers. All the, and does this have price? All the way down to the bottom, here we go. Nope, no price. So back at the top. So the iPhone 13 mini starts at $699. And one thing that, let me go back down here. 128 is now the minimum storage that comes on all the phones. If we go to the 13 Pro, or the 13 regular, we're at, back up here at the top, $799. So $699, $799, $999, $1099 for the base models. And what that has also done with the older phones is that the 10R has dropped off of the price list. And so now you can get the 12 for $100 less, the 11 for $100 less, and the SE for $100 less. Again, so the SE starts at $399, and that's the older 4.7-inch screen. So $399, $499, $599, $699, and $799, $999, $1099. So you can find a phone in any price range. Although the monthly payments, so you can get a 13 Pro, $40 a month. The SE, well, the 12 is $30 a month, and I think the 11 was $25 a month. So if you're doing monthly payments, you might as well get the better phone. If you're going to buy it all at once, then you can decide how you want to go.
Steve, how long do those monthly payment plans run?
For however the math works out. One thing that's interesting. So if we do $9.99 divided by 41.62 equals 24 months. So it's a 24-month payment plan. Yeah. Pardon?
I was wondering how that compared to Apple's expectations of how often you're going to replace your phone, but that sounds ballpark.
Yeah. Yeah, if you have a 12, there probably isn't any big reason to upgrade to a 13. If you have an 11, yeah. If you have a 10, probably.
How about a 7?
7, yeah, you'd probably want to upgrade. I've been yeah, I bought you your 7. I have
I
a
know.
I have a 7, and I'm kind of looking at a new phone too. So I
Yeah,
wanted we
put it
talked
on my-
yeah, we talked about on Soundbites that I want Jackie to sell her 10 to get a 13. She already did have to sell her 10 to someone else who really, really, really wanted a 10, so she's got an 11 and wasn't planning on upgrading to a 13. So I might be out again.
Well, it's on my Christmas wish list.
Yeah. So if we
Right.
start with the Pro Max, let's get it in the new Sierra Blue. Might as well go for that terabyte. So we're at $1,599 for a maxed out phone, which is quite a bit, or $66 a month.
You know, Shirley's bringing up Christmas brings to mind this whole snafu with the container ship stuck offshore and so forth. I wondered how Apple works their way around all those problems so that they never, their stuff is always here.
A lot of what we've heard is they prepay for production and shipping costs. So, they went to Taiwan Semiconductor and said, here's $1 billion, give us 1 million chips. And they said, okay. That's one of the other reasons why other companies can't get to the chips is Apple has already prepaid for production.
Yeah, that's chip supply. But the thing is that the phones as a whole are still made in China, aren't they?
Yeah, they're assembled in China and then shipped over here. And the stories now are that there's hundreds of container ships sitting off the Pacific coast waiting to dock. Long Beach and Los Angeles are the two biggest ports on the West Coast.
Right.
And the story is that they're out. There's not enough truck drivers.
Right. So my point is, how does Apple avoid that bottleneck?
They may not be avoiding it. The first batch of phones sold out within the first day, like it usually does. And one of the things I just read about the truck driver shortage was a new law in California that owner operators cannot drive truck in California. It has to be a fleet. So if you're a truck driver and own your own truck, you can't go to the docks in California. You have to. So there was something about you have to be part of a fleet, and it's supposed to be something to do with the union. So you have to join the union who has to be part of a fleet. And so if you own your own truck, you're not allowed anymore. One of the other things to keep in mind is that a lot of the carriers will often have their own deals. So you can get a deal for, sometimes you get, buy one phone, get one phone free. Let's tell them I'm trading in my 7. And I want a 13 Pro. Yeah, see now, Sprint doesn't have nobody has an iPhone 7 trade-in because it's too old to be worth much. Let's say I've got a 10R. Does that change? Yeah, so that changes. So depending on what carrier you use, there might be a different deal for you. And for that, you would go to purchase it directly through pick your carrier, and you would need to go through the deal they have on their website and buy it from them. So it's another, go ahead.
Those problems with those deals is that they always make you buy the more expensive plans to get the phone deals. The cheap plans are always excluded.
And they're almost always geared toward multi-person families. Buy one, get 2 free. If you just want one phone, then you don't get a deal. So the rumors are already starting about the iPhone 14. One of the big rumors is it's going to have a fingerprint reader under the screen, which I kind of don't see happening because Apple touted up how much more accurate Face ID was than fingerprint ID. Maybe they'll do Face ID under the screen and again get rid of the notch. So the phones have a smaller notch than the previous generation. So maybe they'll be able to get rid of the notch completely. The other thing that they announced last month were new iPads. I'm going to go into iPad and compare. So we got the iPad Pros a couple of months ago that were based on the M1 processor. So basically, the iPad Pro is a high-end computer, or well, maybe even a low-end computer, with up to 2 terabytes of storage. So you can spend a fortune on an iPad Pro now. So the iPad Mini has been upgraded. The iPad 9th Gen has been upgraded. The iPad Air was upgraded previously. The Mini now comes in an interesting purple. The pink is a little different than the rose gold used to be. So we have a nice purple for the iPad Mini. And now the iPad, the iPad still starts at $329. The iPad Mini at $499 went up a little bit, and the iPad Air at $599 already had gone up a little bit. But the bigger difference is the chips inside. Well, let's go for screen size first. So the iPad Mini used to be 7.9. Now it's up to 8.3. And it's using the same A15 processor that the iPhone has now. The iPad 9th Gen uses an A13, and the Air uses the 14. So what's interesting is the iPad Air has a lower chip, but a bigger screen. So right now you decide whether you want a faster iPad Mini at $499 or a bigger screen at $599. So the prices are pretty close for that different capacity. And they all go to 256 gigs of storage because these are basically the low end iPads. If you want the iPad Pro, you can get, as I said, up to 2 terabytes of storage. The Mini now has a 12 megapixel camera with a flash. The standard has an 8 megapixel and a 12 megapixel. That's the rear camera. The front camera, they've also gone with an ultra wide camera on the Mini and the 9th Gen, which means it can take a wider image. And one of the things they've shown is that you can be on like a FaceTime call, and as you walk, say, walk around your in front of your desk, the screen can actually sort of move and follow you because it's taking a bigger image than it's showing on the display, and so it can look like it's tracking you even though it's not physically moving itself.
Steve, is that what they call the center stage feature?
Yes. So it keeps you on center stage no matter where you physically, well, within reason, where you physically walk around the desk. They went to a USB-C connector on the Mini, but annoyingly, they left the Lightning connector on the 9th Gen. So now the 9th Gen iPad is the only iPad left with a Lightning connector. Maybe next year they'll go USB-C.
I would like to chime in on that if I may. I had an iPad Air 2, and I had problems with the Lightning port on it. I tried to clean it, and I was not successful. One thing led to another, and I won't waste a lot of time here, but it involved the Apple Store and essentially turned into a replacement Air 2 for the price of a new battery. But I had this kind of grudge or whatever against the Lightning connector and wanted something with USB-C. And so I ended up getting the new small iPad Pro. However, I'm fully confident that I can schmutz up the USB-C connector just as badly as I did the Lightning. So I've made an arrangement involving the frame I have around the thing and a piece of a plastic card that slides to cover that port if I disconnect it from the charger. But the other thing I wanted to throw in here in the news section is the business of the European Union talking about mandating USB-C on everything and how that'll affect like the iPhones and stuff like that. Are the iPhones still all Lightning connectors?
Yes. And the EU had previously mandated USB Mini, is it Mini B, I think? There's a Mini B and a Micro B, and I can never remember which is which. And so Apple got around that by including a USB-A to Mini B adapter in the box. and that's sort of what we figure they'll do now.
Okay.
It's Lightning on the phone, but it comes with a USB-C charger. And one of the things that they did on the phone, which really annoyed people, is that on the new phones, you do not get a charger with the phone in the box. You just get a charging cable, with the assumption is everyone's already got chargers. But they're including a USB-C cable in the phones. And everyone has USB-A chargers. So you're going to end up needing to buy another USB-C charger or an adapter. So that's a little annoying. So as long as they include a USB-C cable in the box, they're probably still within the EU regulations.
Thank you.
Yep. The Mini.
I don't know how the EU does things. A lot of times they always say they're trying to be consumer, look out for the consumer, but I don't know. It just seems like they go overboard sometimes. Anyway, that's my comment.
It is nice. One of the things that the earlier USB B regulation caused is that the hundreds of different power bricks that used to come with every different device were basically replaced by USB bricks, and that really helped. So it's like every phone used to come with a different power brick, and even the same brand of phone, different models would have different bricks, and so that really helped to come up with a single USB standard. And we were all worried about what happens when USB-C gets more popular. Well, they amended their standard, now it's USB-C. We'll see what comes next. So the Mini can go 5G cellular optional configurations, and the 9th gen and the Air are still 4G. For most people, this doesn't really help any because there's barely any 5G anywhere. And usually we recommend to our customers don't buy the cellular version. It's $130 more for cellular, and you need to buy a cellular plan for the iPad, which most carriers will charge you $10 a month. You can just use a hotspot on your phone if you need to get internet service on your iPad when you're not in a Wi-Fi area. So that usually works out easier than paying extra for cellular in the phone. It does work with the Mini works with the Apple Pencil 2nd gen, and the 9th gen works with the 1st gen. 9th gen also works with the smart keyboards, where the Mini just uses Bluetooth keyboard, so they didn't make a new smart keyboard for the Mini. They also upgraded the minimum storage. So now the iPad 9th gen comes with 64 storage for $329. It used to be 32. And so 64 gig minimum storage across the board, and then it jumps up to 256 for the 150-ish more. So they took out the 128 middle ground, so you can quadruple the storage now. Still, especially in the Mini with the 8-inch screen, the outer dimensions are still about the same because they shrunk the bezels down. So that the outside dimensions are similar, but the screen is bigger. The Mini uses the better liquid retina display, which has a higher resolution than the regular retina display, and with a laminated anti-reflective coating and a wider color gamut. So the Mini is a much better hardware level device if you don't mind the 8.3-inch screen. Because it's got the A5 Bionic in it. Let's see what else was interesting there. We did the cameras. We did the front cameras. They both have 2 speakers. One thing they added to the Mini, like the Air, is landscape audio. So when you turn the speaker sideways, basically, when you work the iPad in landscape mode, which a lot of people do, it will sound like left and right are coming out of landscape rather than in portrait, like the 9th gen, which is handy if you're watching videos. All the things, all the connectors, the sensors, the whiz bang. Yeah, so the 6th gen mini and the 9th gen iPad are now available. And at our store, we have some sales on the previous generation models. We call those our yesterday models. Moving. Well, any other questions on the iPhones or the iPads that we can add? Anyone get any of the new devices yet?
No. Steve?
Yeah.
Steve, apparently fingertip on the mini on the on-off button or the whatever they call that button.
Yeah.
How do they do fingerprint on a skinny little button?
The MacBook Air, the iPad Air added that last year. Where is it? It's got the Touch ID sensor is on the power button now. And so it's not in the bezel, and that's how they shrunk the bezel out of it. So it, let me just search for touch. There we go. Multi-touch display, Touch ID. There we go, Touch ID sensor. So the iPad 9th generation still has the home button with the sensor on it, but the mini goes to a sensor in the top button like it is on the Air. So it doesn't read your whole finger. Hold the camera here. It doesn't read your whole fingerprint like it would on the home button. But when you're learning your fingerprint, it will have you touch the reader multiple times in different ways, so it can learn your whole fingerprint.
Wow.
So
isn't that like the MacBook Air?
Well, they have the actual the sensor, about a centimeter square sensor, like the size of the home button was. But now on the iPad Air and the iPad Mini, the sleep wake power button switch at the top is now the fingerprint sensor.
Okay.
And we can probably.
Yeah, that mini. I like the mini.
Steve, a question on the, because I told you at a previous meeting or whatever that new iPad Pro I bought, I had a problem with it hanging up and I couldn't shut it off. The instructions that came with it were to press and hold the top button and press and hold either the up or down volume button. And out at the Apple store, they said, well, you press the volume up button, and then you press and hold the top button, and then you press and hold the volume down button. And you pointed out that if you go into settings, into general, there's actually a shutdown option, which was, and my question is, because I've since noticed that on an iPad Air, I think, how long has that been there in the settings in general?
Several years.
Has it?
Yeah. And there's a difference between a normal shutdown and then a force reboot. And so the hold the up and then hold the power and then hold it down, that's the forced reboot. And actually then there's another one called DFU mode that puts it in a special diagnostic mode where service providers can run diagnostics and reload the OS. Oh. So among those buttons, there's 4 different functions it can do with 2 different buttons.
I'm going to throw in one other little tidbit, because I ended up doing this thing where they swap your iPad for a refurbished one or whatever it is. I had information in my old one that I would have liked to delete before it went out of my clutches. But I asked them if they erased the things, and they said, oh, it depends on whether we can get it to turn on. I mean, this whole thing was an iffy thing that they couldn't get the thing to turn on to do diagnostics on it. So they said, well, leave it overnight and we'll see if it comes on type thing. And I'm thinking, yeah, sure, fine. And apparently somehow it did. And they were able to decide that it was really, they could give me the replacement battery price of $100. But,
yeah, they might have got it into DFU mode to copy the data.
Okay, because the thing is that, so somewhere out there, hopefully now it's been recycled into, molten rare earth metals or whatever the heck they turn them into.
One of the robots took it apart. Yep.
Right, and I don't have to worry about my non-public personal information being out there somewhere. Well, I'll find out if credit cards start to blow up or something, but I doubt it.
They did add a new feature to the new setup in iOS 15. When you set up your new iPad, you can tell it to transfer all the data from your old one, like you used to be able to. But then the old one says, "Oh, you've transferred your data. Do you want to erase this to give it to someone or sell it to someone?" And so it walks you through how to turn off Find My Device, how to sign out of your Apple ID, and erase the iPad. So it makes it easier to resell it. We've gotten a lot of people brought in iPads they just bought where Find My Device is still turned on from the previous owner. And there's nothing we can do. You have to go to the previous owner and get them to turn it off.
Wow.
Excuse me. All right. Now, the new thing that's happening is Monday, an unusual Monday Apple event. They're normally on Tuesday. And I don't know how well this is going to play over the Zoom, but Jaws posted that. Some people who are where's the pause? Okay, let me go a little bit farther. There it is. The rumors are it's going to be the high-end MacBook Pros. So right now we have the low-end MacBook Pros, the $999 and the $1,299. The high-end MacBook Pro, the $1,799, $1,999 model, and the 16-inch MacBook Pro are expected to get the next chip, which is expected to be called the M1X. And the 13-inch is probably going to go to a 14-inch. Those are the big rumors. And people who have looked at this video, frame by frame by frame, you see how the letters are made up of individual dashes. They say that means that the screens are going to have the micro LEDs, like the iPad Pro has. So you get an even better screen, even sharper colors, better contrast, and bigger, better, faster. So the higher end MacBook Pros, and possibly the replacement for the 27-inch iMac. We have the 24-inch low-end Mac with the M1, so the 27 may get the M1X, and the rumor there is it's going to go to a 30-inch, maybe a 32-inch, again by shrinking the bezels without necessarily making the computer any bigger. And in fact, it's probably in here. Yeah, and I'm on the Mac Rumors site. Possibly a Mac Mini, because that's been out for a year and a half now, because they introduced that at last year's WWDC as the transition machine. That might also get an upgrade to the M1X. A lot of the rumors are saying they're going to return the MagSafe port, and they're going to add an SD card slot back again, which is interesting because maybe it's the high end. Most people use their phones for cameras these days, and that just syncs through iCloud or USB cable in. But for the higher end people that use actual digital cameras, being able to take the SD card out and put it into the Mac would be handy. So there's rumors that we're going to get more ports back, an HDMI port. So rather than, especially on the 16-inch that has 4 USB-C ports, you end up needing to get a hub so you can get your old HDMI back, to get your old SD card back, to get your old USB-As back. So maybe they'll include those ports back again. Also, possibly new AirPods in a new case, a smaller stem. There was a Beats version that was released that has an even smaller stem, so it's just the AirPod that sticks in your ear. It almost looks like hearing aids now, that they're getting so small to stick in your ear. And so that's Monday, 10 a.m. Pacific. What is that? 1 p.m. Eastern. So we'll see if that what actually gets announced and how long it's going to ship. Oh, what was the other thing I missed? Monterey will probably. Oops. Whoever just joined, please mute. They'll probably release Monterey to the public, or at least find the launch date, because it's expected that the new computers will come with Monterey pre-installed. Is anyone running the beta of Monterey? Anyone tried it? We've had a couple people come in with the betas on. What's a little annoying is that Apple tells us we're not supposed to service a computer with a beta OS. It has to have a release OS, because whatever the problem is might be caused by the beta OS. So that's a little annoying on the service side. Alrighty, any questions on that? I will hide the Safari window, and the computer can. Do we want to take like a 5-minute bathroom break before we turn it over to Nick? Or people can get up and go to the bathrooms themselves. Oh, and I gotta turn off screen sharing. That's what I'm missing. Where is my screen sharing button? Stop screen share.
Steve, are you going to do a Q? Are you going to do a Q&A after Nick?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Oh,
so
Dennis. Hi there. Didn't notice you there when my window was small. Oh, Grandma, what's Grandma cooking? And is she making enough for everybody?
Okay.
Nice.
I just want to say I had a great experience at the Apple Store.
Oh, good.
I had bought a used 2020 MacBook Air, and the camera wasn't working the last time we met. So I took it to them, and they ended up replacing both the camera and so the display plus the logic board.
That's a whole new computer.
Still under Apple Care. So.
Did they do that right there, Lyndon?
No, they had to send it out, but I got it back in less than a week.
Yeah.
Because my experience with that iPad Air I was talking about was I didn't understand how their whole system worked. If I understood correctly, when it was done, they supposedly do repair work there on iPhones and laptops, but not on the iPads, the tablets. Those they swap, which makes me wonder if they've got a whole back room full of extra examples of recent products from Apple that they can give you. I don't know how they work.
It depends on what's wrong with it. With the iPhone, we can replace a display or a camera. If it's a logic board, it usually needs to get shipped out. iPads are interesting. Any repair for any problem is a whole unit replacement. So they just ship us a new one. So the broken ones go back to Apple, where they're disassembled, parts are recycled, and may end up in the refurbished chain. But the Apple's goal is to get it back in the customer's hand as fast as possible. So if they can give you a new iPad just by swapping it out, that's what they try to do.
Right.
Alrighty, Nick, would you like to take over?
All right.
You have permission to share your screen.
I do. Am I good audibly? Audioly?
Yep.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. I'm really kind of going to break this up into 3 sections. First, there's the talky part, then there's the showy part, and then there's 4 sections because nobody expects Spanish Inquisition. Then there's the shameless plugs, and then the question and answer section. So save your questions to the end. So let's start out with what is a Raspberry Pi? Well, basically, it's an SBC. An SBC is a single board computer, and that is a complete computer built on a single circuit board. It's got the microprocessor, the memory, all the I/O, whatever features you need, RAM, etc., to become a functional computer. And of course, the dirty little secret is that lots of computers now are SBCs. Most laptops are essentially single board computers. Any Google Home or Amazon Alaska, thank you, Dennis, is a single board computer inside there. So there are really a lot of them there. It's not a big deal anymore. And they still, like I said, have all the connectors, USB and GPIO and dedicated camera port. And the GPIO is general purpose input output. I'll show you that in a minute. So here's an example. This is a Raspberry Pi 3B Plus. This is the entire computer. Oh, I should tell you, I have a web page that I created for this meeting. It's at asknick.com/CIDER, all lowercase. asknick.com/CIDER.
I'll put that in the chat.
Don't get excited. There's a lot of stuff on there that I'm not going to bother to show you. I just get a little list crazy sometimes. So here's the 3B. And as you can see on the page, the 3B Plus, it has a quad core 64-bit processor at 1.4 gigahertz and a gig of RAM. That's the medium end model. There are other models. There's one that the Raspberry Pi Zero is about the size of a RAM module that you might put into your computer, and they get a little bigger and bigger. But really, unless you're building, unless you're going to stick it in a model rocket or an airplane or run your home robot or whatever, if you're talking about something that you want to play with as a desktop or a laptop or whatever, then the lowest model you want to go with is a 3B Plus. And like I said, that's a 1.4 gigahertz quad core processor. And it has pretty much everything you would want. So you get a whole bunch of ports. There's on this particular model, there's 4 USB 2 ports, 1 Ethernet port. There's a full-size HDMI and a micro HDMI and audio jack. So that's the power. That's the power. And then there are some internal jacks as well, connectors, ports as well for their model camera, et cetera, et cetera. And it comes with heat sinks. And then this little set of pins here. I don't know how well you can see that. Probably be better if I face them to the camera. Those pins there are the GPIO pins, general purpose input output pins. And they're designed to hook something like a breadboard to. So you can add your own experiments, and this plugs into that, and you can do whatever you want on it. And then there are all kinds of devices. They also have a set of devices called hats, which, not surprisingly, sit on top of this and connect to the to connect to the actual Raspberry Pi through the GPIO ports. Better than a 3 Plus, particularly if you're going to use it, for example, as a desktop or as a second computer or whatever. Would be a Raspberry Pi 4. It looks almost identical to this, but it is also a quad-core processor, but it's a higher version of the ARM chip, and it's also 64-bit, but it's 1.8 gigahertz, was 1.5, but now they're putting the same chip in as the next one I'm going to show you, which is the Raspberry Pi 400. This is the Raspberry Pi 400. It is a complete computer. As you can see, there's all the stuff in the back. You get two HDMI 4s, two HDMI 3s. Hello, hi, how are you? Two USB 3s, one USB 2, an Ethernet port, two HDMI ports, so you can't, they're micro HDMI. So you can hook two monitors up simultaneously. Whatever that is. Oh, that's the power there. And then a micro SD card for your operating system. And there are those GPIO pins, which I don't think you can see well there, but there they are. So you could hook anything up to that as well. Now, this one has this right here. That's a 0.5 terabyte hard drive. Yeah, 512 gig SD card, SSD, micro SD card. And I boot off of that. I don't have to boot off of the little micro SD card. I can boot right off the USB drive instead. And then the entire thing is inside here. It is fanless. And this entire bottom is a heatsink. I have run this thing doing video meetings for hours on end, endless video meetings, and it doesn't really get even warm. I was going to do tonight on it. I was going to, hey, you're soaking in it, but unfortunately, Zoom does not work well with the ARM processor. The platform I normally use, Mastermind Lounge, works great all day, all night. But this thing, Zoom doesn't. It just doesn't work well with ARM, and that's entirely on them. So I'm not actually sure, but it makes it easier for me to show it to you. Now, the interesting thing about this one is, is if you're interested in playing around with this type of machine, this is $100 all in, except for the 0.5 terabyte drive. It gives you everything. You get the keyboard, you get the mouse, the official Raspberry Pi mouse. You get every cable you need. You get the power supply. The only thing you don't get is a monitor. And let's be honest, everybody's got at least one extra HDMI port somewhere. But you get the HDMI cable, micro HDMI to full HDMI. You get literally everything except the monitor. And it even, if you buy one of these, it even comes with the micro SD card pre-formatted and pre-set up. You can get that in 16 gig for as part of the $100, but you can go all the way up to 256 gig if you like. But I boot from this instead, just because I can. So, with this one, you've got to buy the case, and you got to buy the power supply, and you got to buy all the cables, and a mouse, and some sort of keyboard. Although, pretty much any keyboard will work. I tend to use this one. I love this little thing. It's easy to carry around and use. But with this, you're there. Everything but the monitor comes with it, and it's pretty cool. And
I think that's probably why we wanted you to come and talk about it tonight. Is it reminds me a lot of the old Apple II. You tinker with it. You write your own programs. You do whatever you want with it. And it's so cheap that a lot of people that may have been used to the Apple II or started with the Apple II, you can get a Raspberry Pi and go back to tinkering.
That's exactly right. That's a large part of what you can do with it. And we'll talk about, there are multiple operating systems available. There's There's a lot of versions of Linux, and I've listed 13 of them here, but there are a lot more. And there is also, well, there's also a version of Windows, and I know how excited you people are about Windows. The only official version is the Windows 10 IoT Core. IoT is Internet of Things, and it's really designed for creating an appliance with the Raspberry Pi. But you can put real Windows on it, but it's not for the faint-hearted, it's not for the impatient, and it's definitely only for the tech savvy. Mainly because Microsoft doesn't really want you to. I don't know what that may change with the next version that's supposed to be cloud-based, but right now, that's the way that goes. As to which Pi you might think you should get, I'd recommend the 4 as a minimum for the more tech-savvy people. But like I said, you're going to have to add everything else, and you're going to have to burn your own micro SD card, although that's, or buy one separately, although that's not hard. They have a utility that just point and click and you're done. But you get the 400 the Pi 400 gives you everything, and all you have to do is have a monitor, and you're up and playing in a matter of minutes. It's pretty cool. Hook it up, plug in all the cables, boot it up, you're in, you're done. All right, now let's go to the desktop. Or not. Hold on.
Nick,
yeah,
I have a question for you with the 400 kit.
Yeah.
So basically, the only thing, if you got the 400 kit for $100, basically the only thing you would need to do is just have a monitor.
Yes.
And,
or a TV with an HDMI port.
Right. So, I'm taking a look at the page where it has, the different things. So we actually wouldn't need, the only other thing that I wanted to ask is it has for external storage. Like if I have an old or even an unused SSD,
yeah,
I can use that.
Yes. Well, in fact, in just a minute, I will go to my Raspberry Pi 4 desktop, and you will see that I have the 128 gig micro SD card. I got a micro SD card. I've got a USB thumb drive, and I've got a 2 terabyte hard drive, all connected to the Raspberry Pi 400. And I use it for one of my backups. So there's a lot. There's a lot. All right. So what in the Sam Hill? Okay. Share my screen. Do I go to advanced? Do I go to basic? It's not showing me anything.
Big green button at the bottom. Share screen.
No, I'm seeing it. I'm just not seeing.
You got to pick which screen you want to share.
Yeah, but it's not showing me the screen I want to see. All right, hold on. This is why I don't. Okay.
Got to pass out M&Ms.
We can do that. All right.
If you have M&Ms at home, go get them.
See, now it'll do it. Oh, it doesn't do multiple desktops. That's interesting. Okay, we'll do this. Okay. So you should be able to see this now. This is my Raspberry Pi 4. Are we all seeing the Chromium browser? I'm scrolling through the thing. Can you see that?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is my desktop, and it's one of many operating systems you can run on this. It is Raspbian. No, excuse me. It is the Raspberry Pi OS. It used to be called Raspbian. They have recently changed the name because Raspbian was too easy to type. Now they have to call it Raspberry Pi OS, so it takes longer. And it's got all kinds of things that you would normally see. It's got the date and time up in the corner, and the weather, and all the things that you would normally see. My volume for my audio, and my Ethernet and wireless and my Bluetooth, and my if you're following along, you can see that I'm at 51 degrees Celsius. Actually, that's the temperature of the processor, and I'm only using about 1% of the processor right now. And I have two desktops right now. There's desktop 1 and there's desktop 2. So as with any Linux system, you can have multiple desktops, you can have multiple programs running on each desktop, you can do whatever you want with it. So that's just a quick idea of what the desktop itself looks like. Now, what can you do with it? Well, let's say you wanted to do word processing. There's a program called AbiWord, and it looks a lot like any other word processor. It's very lightweight. It reads and writes Microsoft Office files, and it's a pretty nifty program. A little limited, but it runs on a very little bit of RAM and a very low-end machine. So if you've got a Raspberry Pi 3, this might be the better choice for you to do word processing. Is that somebody talking?
Yeah.
So I can't hear them.
I don't think he was talking to us.
Okay. No, that's the wrong thing. If you're interested in spreadsheet, there's one called Numeric, which is a spreadsheet. I don't know how excited you are about spreadsheets. And again, it's lightweight and it runs on an app on a Raspberry Pi 3, as well as the 4 and the 400. But if you're going to run any sort of thing like that, why not just run LibreOffice? I know some of you at least are familiar with LibreOffice. It's a full-blown Office package suite. It includes a database, a calculator, analyzer, really, drawing package, a presentation package like PowerPoint or Keynote, a math package to do scientific formulas, and of course a word processor. And this is a full-blown thing, unless you're using some special package, like for example, there are legal packages that are used by some people on Microsoft Office, or medical packages that are used on Microsoft Office. Unless you need one of those, this will do everything that Microsoft Office will do. So there's all kinds of stuff like that. If you're into video, VLC, the same VLC that everybody uses. I'm not going to bother to run anything right now because I'm doing a remote desktop into the 4, which is going into Zoom, which is going to you. I can't imagine how slow that's going to be. But I will tell you, I watch movies off of this. And in fact, I ripped my DVDs of Nero Wolf. I ripped my DVDs to the Raspberry Pi and then cast them to my television and watched the whole series that way. So really, you can do pretty much whatever you like with that. So VLC works fine. There's an audio player called Clementine.
Well, my darling.
Which lets you do all of these various internet things. You can connect it to an iPod or an iPhone or whatever. You can have your own sets of playlists. You can read files off of your hard drive. This is the library of songs I've already got on my 1 terabyte drive. As you can see, it's got everything. And it gives you song information and artist information and the kind of stuff you would get pretty much everywhere else. and all I have to do is pick the thing I want to listen to and hit the button. And when it plays, it's got pretty things that you can do there. No, I wanted to stop. And that plays through a speaker connected to my Raspberry Pi, so I can listen to that anytime that I like. If you're into Pandora, there is a client called Pithos, which lets you play Pandora radio over your system. Maybe it's Pythos, but I think it's Pithos. I don't know. If you're into graphics, Blender, right? It's a 3D modeler renderer. If you know what Blender is, that should excite you. There's Inkscape, which is a vector graphics program. And of course, the GIMP, which is the GNU image manipulation program. It's essentially Photoshop. Adding software is super easy. You go down to preferences. You really have two choices. There's the recommended software, and this updates every time, so that if there's new stuff out there, it'll come in, and that takes a moment. So here we are now, and there's educational stuff and some games, and Claws Mail, which is essentially Thunderbird, although you can load Thunderbird itself if you'd rather. I'll show you how to do that in a minute. The Office package, of course, is already loaded. Programming, and I'll show you a little some of that, because that's a lot of people use this for programming. And there's a screen reader and a screen magnifier if you need those. Those are all available as well. But that's just the recommended software. There's also the full-blown package of software. So let's say I wanted to add Thunderbird. I have to hit enter. And again, it's going to do the searching in this thing. And here it is. This is Thunderbird. It's a full Thunderbird package. And then if you want to add additional languages, they're all here, et cetera, et cetera. And there's games, and there's fonts, and there's graphics, and there's all the stuff that you would normally add. And again, programming, very big on the Raspberry Pi.
How about a streaming thing like Kodi now? Turn it into a streaming server.
Well, yes. And in fact, Kodi is available on two systems, as you can see from my homepage there. Let's let that cook in the background. As you can see here, there's both OSMC, the Open Source Media Center, and it, in fact, it supports Apple TV. Oh, suddenly it's interesting.
Well, no, that's weird. Because how do they? That's probably first generation Apple TV.
It says so.
Oh yeah.
And it does. That's what it does. It's a free system. And then there's actual Kodi itself. They now call it LibreElec. Just enough OS for Kodi, and that lets you do all the Kodi stuff. And Kodi itself, for those of you who don't know what Kodi is, it's essentially a home theater, and it lets you do pretty much everything. You can put your movies and your TV shows and your music and everything on Kodi and run it. And again, as I think it was Ken asked earlier, yeah, you can put a 2 terabyte hard drive on that thing and save all the movies and TV shows and music you can find legally, of course. Kodi is not tremendously easy to set up. I'll just put it that way because I understate. However, LibreElec actually does most of the work for you. So it does as much of it as it can. And in fact, there's even a creator for Windows, Mac, and various Linuxes. So they make it as easy as possible to set up Kodi. The other really lovely thing about these systems is, like I said, they come on a micro SD card. So if you don't like the operating system you're running, change it. Turn it off, pop the one out, pop the new one in, boot it up. Micro SD cards are cheap. So you could be running Kodi until the police come to your door, and then you can pop that chip out and just run plain Raspbian. So that's... and then there's, if you're into gaming, there's RetroPie. And then RetroPie, you can buy a micro SD with 135,000 games pre-installed. There's a version of Kali if you're a security professional that made you happy. And there's just a bunch of regular Ubuntu Mate, Twister OS, Fedora, CentOS, whatever makes you happy, is all available there. As for, excuse me one second. As for the operating system itself, there are a couple of different things. Oh, I should probably talk about programming, since that's what so many people do on this. There are any number of editors that you can download. Any of you who remember WordStar, you can actually get an editor that uses the WordStar keys. Very cool. But there are lots of these. Python is the big language for this system. But you can get others. You can get C compilers and everything else. I tend to use a program called Genie, but you can fairly easily run any programming language you want. Like I said, I write most of my stuff in Python on Genie, but there are lots of things that work there. And you can write any programs you want to do anything you want fairly easily, fairly quickly. And you can write. These are obviously text-only programs. Hey, guess which one of these systems is WordPress? Or this is the Soundbites poll. I wrote this in Python, and it's a graphical program. In fact, all three of these programs are graphical. There's just there's a lot. There's a lot. Oh yeah, I was already running it. Here's a program that will prove to you that I've got 126 gig SD card, SD thumb drive, which is also partitioned into a little bit of boot sector. And this is my 126 gig. No, this is the micro SD card. This is the plain thumb drive. And then that's my 2 terabyte drive. Obviously, it loses something in the translation. And of course, after formatting, you lose a little bit to the formatting stuff, but blah, blah, blah. And that's how much has been used and how much is free and all of that. And as you can see, this is a 4-core processor with 1 thread per core. So it multitasks 4 things. And this is the old one, so it runs 1.5 gigahertz, 1500 megahertz. And I'm barely using it. The load average would have to go to 4 to be fully used. So you see there's not much there. And this is an 8 gig chip, an 8 gig system, and I'm only using 2 gig of it right now.
Can you make that?
Yeah, sorry.
Can you make that text bigger easily? a little hard to see.
Sorry, I didn't think about that. Hello, where do you let me do this? Style, shouldn't it be in style? I guess not. Oh, there we go. It's right in front of me. Now if I open a new window, do I get the big, no, what the heck just happened?
You hit cancel instead of okay, didn't you?
Did I?
I think so. It was kind of small, but I think.
And apparently I'm an idiot. Okay, I can fix that. I did select that. Then oh, maybe that is your problem. So if I were to type status now, of course, you won't necessarily see the whole thing. Yeah, you just see the whole thing. It's taking multiple lines, but there's the drives themselves, and you can see what I have used and what's still available, the size they come in. Again, 1500 megahertz, 1500 megahertz, 1.5 gigahertz, as opposed to the 1.8 that they come with now. And this load average is a Linux thing. This is the load right now. That's the load 5 minutes ago. That's the load 15 minutes ago. And it would have to get up, because I have 4 cores, it would have to get up to 4 before it was empty, before it was fully busy. So as you can see, the system's pretty much empty. It's an 8 gig machine. I'm using 2 gig, and then 5 gig is available because there's some buffer and cache and some shared and some stuff. So, and that's my temperature, 53.1 degrees Celsius. But that's the sort of thing, and it's a regular Linux system. This is essentially the same system you go to if you ever venture deep into the terminal on your Macs. You would see pretty much all of this same stuff. And that's my that's Python. Yeah. Here's all the stuff I have. I have my documents, and I have my downloads, and I have my audio stuff. So there's just a lot of things in here that you can find on any standard Linux system, and they all work here. But as I said, a lot of what I tend to do is one of the things Steve pointed out is that a lot of people are using these as experimentation tools. They're super inexpensive. And as we often say, unless you're typing with a hammer, you really can't hurt it. Even if you completely screw it up, just reflash your thumb drive. You're back in, you're done. I do a lot of my programming on here before I move it over to a production environment. So if something does screw up here, it only screws up here. So that works out pretty nicely for me. But there's a lot of programming languages that you can add to this. There's a lot of development environments that you can add to this, and that's what a lot of people use it for on a fairly regular basis. Yeah, I think we're kind of done with that. Oh, yeah. Look and feel, because I know nobody's happy with the generic look and feel of anything. In fact, I changed this one from blue to orange. And there are 2 ways to play around with the look and feel of the system. Under preferences, you can make a couple of changes under appearance settings. For example, your background image, or you can just click here and go to desktop preferences, takes you exactly the same place. And so you can make some changes here. But the better way to do it is with a program called obconf. The windowing manager in Raspbian is the open box configuration manager. So obconf is the open box configuration tool. And I can change the color scheme of these things, and I don't have a lot of fancy ones on here, so you can't, doesn't change much about the look of anything, but you can change all the colors if you want to, and you can change the appearance and things about the windows and the way the mouse works and how many desktops you have. And there's a Docker if you're one of those people who likes, you know, phases of the moon in the corner, that stuff. So all of those things are, in fact, I'll show you if you can see this. It's going to be very tiny.
There's probably somebody that put out a Mac theme.
Yes, there are several. Yes. So there's my weather thing, slightly off to the side. And there's my moon clock. So you can see what phase of the moon it is. And these are just a little off screen. So
how many monitors can you run?
Depends on the device you have. If you've got a 4 or a 3, 1. If you've got a Raspberry Pi 400, 2. And they're both full HDMI, full 1920 by 1280, whatever that number is, full HD. So you can do, I know a number of people who are full-time programmers, and they use Raspberry Pi 400s, and they have one screen with all their code on it and one screen for showing what they're doing. So there's a lot of that stuff. And boxlook.org is pretty astonishing. There are a number of window managers for Linux. I don't know why you can see this here, but you can see them all yourself. I'm just showing you where they are. And open box themes are the ones that the Raspberry Pi uses. And there are hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of pages of these things. So if you know, this is a rabbit hole. You can spend a lot of time looking at the various themes to run on your Raspberry Pi, and that's pretty cool. The other thing is upgrading. Upgrading is very easy. Just say sudo means do this as root. In any Unix-like system, including the Mac, if you want to run something at the command line, you can run it as a user, which is limited and is how you should always run things, or you can run it as root, who is the god of the system, the super user. So sudo means super user do this as the super user, and then apt is the packaging manager, and then you update your stuff, and as you can see here, it's going out to the system and updating the packages. So oh, look, I have 21 packages that I can update. So I replaced update with upgrade. And it tells me here are the files that I want to update. Mostly I don't care, except I'm going to replace my my database manager, which is fine. And this is working. Oh, and by the way, I can do other things while this is working. I can go to the other desktop and do whatever I want on that while it's working. Doesn't matter. Come back and see that it's still working. And unless it's actually updated the operating system itself, I don't have to reboot. So that's, and then again, like a Mac, like any system except Windows. You don't. That's how that works. So keeping it updated, very easy. Running programs, very easy. Most people never need to get out of the graphical interface. But if you want to, you've got a whole world open to you here, as you do on a Mac, and before we get to questions, I believe it's definitely shameless plug time. You'll see down at the bottom my shameless plugs. First, of course, Soundbites. You know that. On the web and streaming on the internet. If you are interested in the Raspberry Pi, I wrote a book. Hey, look at me. Getting started with the Raspberry Pi. It's at Amazon, so it's Kindle only. $2.99, cheap at half the price. If you do buy it, I would appreciate an honest review. Or a good review, your choice. Clearly, that would be it. Shameless plug number 2. I put out a weekly newsletter. It's only $25 a year. I'm my second year. I'm starting my third year of that, and here's the topics I've gone through so far. A lot of stuff. And then I also teach classes at mastermindlounge.com, one of which is Raspberry Pi for Beginners. So that's my stuff. I will leave this up because if anybody has a question about it, I can go to it and show them something. Does anybody have a question?
There were a couple of questions in the chat. What?
Oh, you can't see that one.
What power supply does the 3B need?
It's a USB-C connector, of course it is, and it's 3.5 volts.
And
but it's easy enough to find if you just go to. There are a number of places that sell it. You can find it on Amazon and of course at the Raspberry Pi place itself. But you can also go to a place called Canakit. Canakit. They're a Canadian company, so I suppose that's Canakit right there. And you can get various kits for these things, which include everything. But if you want the power supplies, you can get those as well. And depending on which model you get, but 5 volts. Is it? And again, if you get the 400, it comes with everything.
And are there any apps that let you play with the I/O ports?
Yes, there is one. It's called Python. And you can, and there are entire books written about programming the GPIO ports. It isn't difficult. There is if you know anything about Python programming, you load modules to do what you need. And there is a module specifically designed for the Raspberry Pi GPIO port, which makes it really easy to use them. So yeah, in fact, one of the classes that I teach at RIT, one of the sessions, so it's only an hour long, is setting up a Raspberry Pi, attaching that breadboard to it, creating a little circuit on the breadboard, and then writing a Python program to light up the LED. And we do all of that in an hour. So not a difficult thing to do. Yeah, not a difficult thing to do.
And then Lyndon asks, is there a Raspberry Pi users group in town?
You know what? I don't know that. I should. You would think I would know that.
Might be one on Meetup. Let me check there.
certainly looks. Oh yeah. Oh, that's a makerspace. That's not. Yeah, that makerspace is not here anymore.
Gee, Nick, with all your other stuff, maybe this is something you need to start.
Sorry, Shirley. What?
I mean, you're retired, remember? You got all that free time.
Breaking up. Right. Understand? Say, sorry. Trying.
I know.
Yeah, it doesn't look like there is one. But yeah, I would love to meet other people who are interested in Raspberry Pis and do some stuff with them. But yeah, there's a lot of online stuff. Reddit in particular, lots of people are on Reddit all the time about the Raspberry Pi from all over the world, and there's just a great deal of enthusiasm for the Pi because it's fun. I mean, you get this thing plugged in, and it's just fun to play with. It's just fun to play with. And like I said, you can do anything that you can think of to do with any other program you can do with the Raspberry Pi. And you know, if you've got even a little bit of free time and a little bit of extra cash, $100 all in, and you're done. It's pretty cool. Pretty cool toy. I find, you know what? I find myself working on my Raspberry Pi as much as I work on my desktop. And I've got a giant Linux system with 16 gig of RAM and 3 terabytes of drive space and octa-core processor. And I find myself working on the Pi a lot just because it's easy and it's fun and it's fast and it's right there. In fact, I've got one Raspberry Pi, and the other thing is because they're so cheap, they're so inexpensive that you don't have to stop at one. Dave Enright's got half a dozen of them doing various things for his ham radio stuff. I've got one that I use as my development environment and my one of my backups. I've got another one that's doing nothing but folding at home. What used to be the SETI project. Now it's I'm folding at home, looking for cures for cancer and all that stuff. And this one is going to become my essentially Ring doorbell thing where I can see people at my front door. And this used to be the cat cam. When we have 2 cats, who I think sometimes are 12 cats, but we have 2 cats. And when they were born, my daughter was living in Arizona, and the friend of ours said, "Do you want a cat?" We said, "Oh, sure, of course we do." Well, okay, but my daughter wanted to be able to check in on them anytime while they were still too young to come home with us. So we set this up as a cat cam in the room where the kittens were, and she could log on and view them 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I'm fairly sure she did, pretty much. And so you can do anything with that. I'm really enjoying them. Sorry, go ahead.
I have a question. How important is a heat sink on one of these things? Last fall, at the height of the pandemic, I lost my mind and got 3 of these things running now. One just looks at the backyard taking pictures. The other, actually, I monitor the outside temperature, inside temperature, humidity, air quality, just something to do. But I'll show everybody. I lost my mind and bought a couple of these towers. I don't know if you can actually see it on here. A cooling tower. But how important is it to actually have cooling on? It doesn't seem like I even need it.
Well, I certainly recommend that you have a heat sink. Most of the kits come with one.
Right.
So that's really all I've ever needed. And the Raspberry Pi 3 that is running folding at home is running at 100% constantly. And in the height of summer, it just barely got, if you hit 85, I think it is, degrees Celsius, it throttles down.
Right.
I was at 84 in the hottest days of summer. That room has no air conditioning.
Right.
So I don't really think you need it. Obviously, if you're going to do some really high-end stuff and push all 4 cores on a 4, particularly now they're at 1.8 gigahertz.
Right.
Yeah, I might want some sort of fan on it. In fact, the case that I have there has a fan. Sorry, what?
A lot of the kits also have fans on them.
Right. Right. And there are some kits you can buy with fans already in them. There are also other cases you can buy that come with a fan, but almost all of them can get by with just passive cooling, as long as you have some sort of heat sink.
Okay, so when Lyndon said the fans, I opted and bought the fans. They seem to work just fine. And if I go into the little Raspberry Pi program that monitors its own temperature, it just never seems to be worthwhile doing any more than that. The other thing is when I put one of these hogs on it, it gets in the way of other ports that I want to use. So I just threw them off to the side, but I got a ton of stuff here that I just went crazy buying Raspberry Pi stuff. So it is what it is.
Well, I'll tell you what, you'll have fun with it.
I am.
Yeah. And the problem is, and I call it, maybe what we really need is a support group for Raspberry Pi addicts, rather than a support group for Raspberry Pi users. The
I wouldn't
problem
call
is you
myself
find,
that.
but yeah, well, give it time. The problem is you find reasons to play with it. Do you really need yet one more way to know what temperature is outside? No. But you've got a Raspberry Pi. You knew there was a way to set it up to do that. You did it.
Yeah.
And it was fun and you enjoyed it. And that's the point. Now you look at it every day and it's more satisfying than, Josh Nichols saying it's 72 degrees out. Shut up, Josh. My Raspberry Pi already told me that. So yeah, they're fun and Steve is right. Those of us who started out with things like the Apple II or the Jupiter Ace or the Sinclair or the Coco or any of those older machines in the keyboard, we had fun with those machines. We programmed on those machines, mostly in BASIC. They all came with BASIC. But we programmed on them and we discovered things on them and we exercised our brains on them. And we didn't just sit there and absorb Facebook and Twitter and Snapchat and YouTube. We used them. We didn't just stare at them. You have nowadays with whatever brand of phone or tablet or desktop or laptop you have, we very rarely use them. We let them use us. And a Raspberry Pi is a fun and inexpensive way to get back into actually using your own computer.
Nick?
Yeah.
I'm at the raspberrypi.com and it shows that you can put Raspberry Pi on your Mac.
Yeah.
So it's just simple enough of just installing it on a drive. I know, if you have a virtual machine, you could probably put it on that.
Don't pick your main drive.
Right. Right. Basic. Now, if you're looking at this is the installer, and you really you can, if you want to, put it on an actual hard drive. This was designed to put it on a micro SD card or a USB or whatever to do that. But yeah, you can install it pretty much anywhere, including a virtual machine, in order to play with it if you want to. The problem is the Raspberry Pi operating system is ARM based. So unless your virtual environment can emulate an ARM processor, you won't be able to run it that way. This program here, the Raspberry Pi Imager, is designed specifically to use a Windows or Ubuntu or Mac machine to burn the operating system to a micro SD card so you can put it into your Raspberry Pi. So, like I said, if you buy a Raspberry Pi 400, you don't have to worry about that. It comes with a micro SD card already formatted. Or you can buy one online already formatted. Just go to Amazon and ask. But if you're going to do your own, then you can do it this way. And it lets you choose the operating system. And about half the operating systems I list here are available for you to choose from that installer.
We also had a question from Kim about why would you not buy a 400? It has everything in it.
I don't know. Well, yes, I do. If you're going to put it in something, I mean, this is, if you're going to stick it in a robot or some other device, if you want to mount it on the wall outside your house with a camera for your Ring thing, this is a better form factor, right? So if you're actually building a thing, then I might suggest this as the better form factor. But if you want to use it as a desktop or and to play around with it, then absolutely go for this. Don't even think about anything else. This is the thing for you. And it's portable. I brought mine with a little portable monitor to Soundbites for weeks. Pop it all in the bag, pop it all out. All you got to do is connect cables up and you're done. Fast and not quite as easy as just opening up a laptop, but easier than what Steve does every week. I'll say that.
Well, the computer's the easy part. Tying into the patch board and all of that stuff, that gets tricky.
That's the hard part. But yeah, so you're absolutely right. If you're looking to play, just go the $100 all in. You don't have to think. You don't have to do anything. Just plug it all in, connect it to a monitor, boot it up, and you're done. I bought mine from CanaKit, and I'm glad I did. Very good customer service. The first one I bought, okay. So I bought it, I plugged it in, it didn't work. I sent it back. They said, just put it back in the box. All we want is the box, is the keyboard. Don't give me anything else, just the keyboard. When you get the confirmation, when you get when you send it to us, give us a picture of the receipt with the order number on it, with the tracking number on it, and we'll pay you right away. And they did. And then the second one came. I plugged it in. Same thing happened, but this time I had my hearing aids in, and I heard the power supply crackle. So I knew that the problem was the power supply. So I sent it back again. No question. And in fact, in both cases, it cost me $11 and change to send it, and they gave me $15, American money. So I made out ahead both times. do that enough times, and really you can retire. And then I used a different power supply when it came back, and I was fine. And this works great. So it's pretty nice. It's pretty nice. I'm very pleased. I will say, I was setting all this up this afternoon. I was setting up all week, playing with it, having fun. And at about 2 o'clock this afternoon, I made one little configuration change to my Raspberry Pi 4. And I couldn't log into it anymore. So I had to tear it all down from over there, bring it all over here where I have my monitors, boot it up, run it off my little keyboard. And I love this little keyboard. It's great. It just folds up. It's very cool. Undid the configuration change. Put it all back and it works fine. Thus the wisdom of only ever make one change and then test.
So
But,
Nick,
yeah.
the one problem I have had with my Pis is I tried using the Pi portals from Adafruit, and I don't know why I found those exceedingly difficult to make it work correctly.
I've looked at them. I haven't played with them. Yeah. Yeah. I haven't played much with them. I know there's so many cool things you can do with them.
Yep.
You know,
I kind of got it to half work, but then something wasn't working, and I finally gave up. For the life of me, I couldn't figure out what I was not doing or doing wrong. So I have a couple of them just sitting here. They're not that expensive, but when I do spend my money, I like to make it work. And I just found that for whatever reason, I just couldn't get them to work.
Well, I'll make a deal with you. If you want to loan me one, I'll see what I can do with it.
Hey, I'll send it to the show.
More than perfect.
Okay.
I will. I'll play with it. I'll see what I can do.
I would appreciate it.
Again, no promises.
Okay.
But I'm willing to give it a try, see what happens.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the other thing about the Raspberry Pi. There are so many peripherals for it. You can buy additional screens. You can buy Pi hats. Like I said, they're daughter boards that sit on top of the Pi like it was a hat, and they connect to the GPIO pins here to do all kinds of different things. You can buy little screens. Like Larry was saying, you can get big screens. If you have a 3D printer, you can make your own sets of cases. So you could take, in fact, this looks like it's 3D printed at the bottom of it. You can create cases that include a Raspberry Pi, a screen like this one, and batteries, and carry the whole thing around. There's a company, Lordy, Pi Top? Is it called Pi Top? No. Yes. There is this is a company called Pi Top. Yeah. Yeah. And they sell all kinds of things that you can connect your Raspberry Pi to, including, as you can see in the background, a Raspberry Pi laptop.
I like the robot better.
And there's a robot. So if you're really into it, I know I'm taking way too much time. I apologize.
No, that's okay.
So these are. This is not what it said it was. Anyway, there is a laptop. You can get a laptop, stick your own Raspberry Pi in it. well, I see they're not going to show it to me here. I don't know where it is, but it's there somewhere. And you can, so again, you can do all kinds of things to it. So yeah, I don't know what more to tell you. These are fun toys. If you're looking to get a second computer, either to play with or do some actual thing with, playing with a Raspberry Pi is the way to go. And if you're a maker, a 3 or a 4. If you're a user, a 400. Inexpensive way to get another computer in the house without making your significant other significantly angry. And I think you can have some fun with it.
That robot's only $400, all in with everything.
See?
Yeah.
Including the Raspberry Pi.
Including the Raspberry Pi. Yep.
And again, that robot wouldn't work well with a 400, right? You're not going to want to balance the keyboard on top of the thing. That's where the fours come in. All right. Any other questions? Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Build a robot to clean your house.
Exactly.
Yeah. There could be a little Raspberry Pi in like those robot vacuums.
There's already very much like a Raspberry Pi inside a Roomba, which is a robot to clean your house. Or at least the floor part.
Actually, that might be a good question. What's the difference between a Raspberry Pi and an Arduino?
Oh, that is a very good question. An Arduino is very much like the Raspberry Pi Zero. It's a little board about this big that is used inside of specialized projects. So, and it works very much like a Raspberry Pi Zero. You program it to do a specific thing, right? So you use an Arduino to control a motor to do something, or you use it to control something else, or you use it to sort through your inputs to something. But it's really designed to be part of a little project. And it has a lot of ability, but not a lot of power. So really what you gain as you go up through these things is more power. There's very limited RAM, both the Arduino and the Raspberry Pi Zero. Very little RAM, very low power processor, very rather weak processor, I should say. Not a lot of RAM, but as a controller for certain things, you know, the 6502 was a controller until suddenly it was in the Apple II, and probably one. No, the one was doesn't matter. The point is, that was a controller too, and it turned out to be a very powerful computer. So you can do a lot of things with an Arduino or a Raspberry Pi Zero. But if you're really going to do stuff, then move up, and the farther up you go, the more convenient it is.
Cool.
Okay, well, thank you, Nick, for coming and giving us a great presentation. You know, always.
It was my pleasure. Thank you for all the great questions.
Yes, I really love your expertise in so many things. Is there something you can't do?
Yeah, I'll send you a list. It's 14 pages.
I know. But you do know, you know, quite a lot of stuff. So again, thank you so much from Apple CIDER here that you came on and gave us a good demonstration of Raspberry Pi. And I'm sure we'll be asking you in the future to give us another talk about something to be determined.
Happy to do it.
And everything.
You're a good group of people.
Oh, good. So I think we'll let you go then, unless you want to stick around for a Q&A.
No, I'm good. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate it. Have fun.
Yep. Hello to Eileen. Eileen.
Come on.
I'll say hello to whoever is in the house.
That's right. Your two cats, whoever, right?
Right. Bye, everybody.
Right,
Thanks again.
Good night. Thank you.
All right. So I guess Nick has told us everything you want to know about Raspberry Pi besides actually making a real Pi.
Yeah.
So,
and Steve posted to the chat the pibookpro.com, Raspberry Pi laptop with the screen and everything built in. That's kind of cool. I have a Raspberry Pi around here somewhere, just never gotten around to doing anything with it.
Uh-huh. So, all right. Well, do we want to take a little break, or do we want to jump right into anybody's Q&A and do it? I know it's about, what time is it? 9 o'clock, a little after 9. So we have time to chat for a while more. Anybody has questions about anything? Go for it.
I have a question on the Apple TV. You know, it has a hard drive to record stuff. How do you activate that to record something or play back?
You don't. It's all handled automatically. So it's not really storage to record anything. It's a cache. So when you download a movie, it stays in the cache. When you download a game, it stays in the cache. You get a 32 gig model or a 64 gig model, and the bigger the storage, the more things you can have in your cache.
Okay.
Most of the time, people are would be fine with a 32 gig version, but if you like to watch the same movies over and over again, or you have a kid that likes to watch the same TV shows over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, then having it cached will play faster than needing to download it again.
Okay. The question is, how do you download something to it?
Everything you download goes to it.
So if you're watching a program and you want to download to it, how do you do it? Or
you don't do anything. It does it itself.
So if you want to go back and watch,
you go back to where you started watching it from, and it plays it from cache instead of downloading it again.
I have an Apple TV, and that doesn't make any sense to me at all. I mean, go back to where you were watching it. You mean on Hulu, on Netflix?
No, on the Apple TV app. Whatever source you were watching in Apple TV, it caches it to the local storage drive.
Okay.
So, for example, the TV Plus app, if you're watching a show, it'll cache it to the drive. So when you go back to TV Plus and say, I want to watch this episode again, it will play it from cache rather than downloading it again.
So if you're watching a movie on there, it will cache it to it. If you want to go back, how do you tell? Oh, then you got to go back to the original?
Yeah, you go back to the iTunes store and find that movie again and say you want to watch it again.
So you don't really know what's on it. Okay.
Yeah, and the cache manages itself, and when the cache gets full, it automatically deletes the oldest thing to make room for the new things. It's not really a DVR. It doesn't have that function.
It just caches whatever's playing on it
through
your Apple TV.
The bigger use of it is for games. When you download a game, that game stores on the drive, and any scene data or new levels will download to the storage drive. So if you play a lot of games, you may want to have the bigger storage version.
Okay.
You can go into the Apple TV settings under General and Manage Storage to see how much space is being used and what apps are using it.
Okay.
It's up to each app to do the caching, so it could be that Hulu or Netflix will cache locally, but it may be that they only stream. Part of the issue is that internet has gotten so fast that having that cache is almost not necessary anymore because you can stream it full speed anyway.
Okay. I'll have to play with it, see when.
Yeah, basically the storage is handled automatically, and you don't do anything about it. It does it itself.
I have a couple of dummy level questions when you're ready for a dummy.
Well, you can ask your question.
Well, they're about things like this. FaceTime. I asked you a question last time around about being able to screen share between two iPads, and you suggested one way would be to use FaceTime screen sharing. I'm not at all familiar with that. Am I guessing correctly that screen sharing is not a feature of FaceTime, it is a feature of the Mac or the iPad itself, and you have to go into something there to set up screen sharing and then call on it if you're in a FaceTime call, for example?
No, it is a feature in FaceTime. I don't know what version of the OS they added it in. Let's see. There is a button. Let's see. New FaceTime. There's a button called Share Play that will share your screen. I don't have a FaceTime call open, so I can't mimic it.
No, it's okay. It's called Share Play?
Yeah, Share Play is the button that lets you start sharing your screen in a FaceTime call.
Okay. We need to back up a moment from there because I've actually used FaceTime a couple of times, but I'm not knowledgeable. I'm not adept with it. And when I open FaceTime, it kind of looks different each time. But when I do have it open, then I go up to the menu bar and look for things like preferences, and there are, but I don't think that's what I'm looking for. What's a good place to start with just for a tutorial about how to use FaceTime?
Well, on the Mac, there's FaceTime Help. Let me get out of full screen here. And you can download the Apple User's Guide for the Mac or the iPad or the iPhone. And there's a section on FaceTime in those free user's guides.
Okay, good. I've seen those recently, and I need to download one of those. I had a funny thing with Help. I was trying to do something last night in Pages, and you may recall my strange story, which is that I had a 2008 MacBook Pro that did not have the iWork or whatever it was called on it. And so I needed to put Pages on it so I could do Pages stuff. And I ended up, the currently available one was not compatible with that machine or something. So I ended up downloading a version of Pages 09 from the CIDER Google Drive. And then I did a course done by one of Bob Hoey's favorite people, Gary Rosenzweig, on how to do Pages. And of course, it was the current version. So I had to mentally translate everything he was showing back into Pages 09. And then my 2008 MacBook Pro died in 2018. And I got a new one, which has the new version of Pages on it. So, I kind of groped through it. But anyway, so I hit it for Help the other day. And somewhere in the course of that, the help was labeled Pages 09 Help. And I don't know why that was. I'm not going to sweat it too much. But when I went into FaceTime Help, it didn't seem to me like it was, it looked like it had a hangover from Pages 09 Help. And then I kind of got rid of that and ended up in the FaceTime Help, and it wasn't too handy. But you're right, that downloading that user's guide would be a good way to begin. Now, let me go on.
Well, to continue on that question a little bit, if you are sharing your iPad screen, you would use FaceTime. If you're sharing your Mac screen, you would use Messages.
Okay. All right.
A little annoying that they've separated it that way. I think what it is, Messages has done screen sharing for many versions, and I think they added screen sharing into FaceTime on iOS recently so that there was some way to screen share. Because the Messages app on iOS does text messaging rather than and internet messaging, but it doesn't have all the capabilities of the desktop version.
Okay, that's good to know. Now my technical challenge is finding which page of this mess I had my notes on. So that's a start of things there. Now, if you could do me one more favor. The club's computer is using Big Sur, right?
Did I upgrade to Big Sur? Yeah.
Or Catalina.
Yep.
All right. Can you open a Finder window, please, and share that?
Okay. Share screen. Finder.
Okay, now up at the top of it, of course, I'm like an idiot. I'm sitting here moving my cursor around. That won't help me any. But up at the top of it, you had your choices of icons, list, columns, or gallery.
Mm-hmm.
And that's there. And then next to that, if you want to, next to that, you have all these choices. And part of the instruction for that, if you hover over it before you open it, talks about using the option key. And so now I used to be able to do this stuff, and now I'm confused by it. My question, I guess, is whether you're supposed to go to that thing you were just on up there, the other one, and choose one of those first, and then go back to it and choose another. Because, for instance, looking at you have a column display on right now, right? Correct?
No, that's list. Whoops. List. Want me to go to column?
Yeah.
And this is controls how the list is sorted.
Right.
Or not sorted, grouped.
Well, see, grouped and sorted. Because if you went with something like kind, it would be how it's grouped. But
Right.
Then if you do date last open, that would be sorting, wouldn't it?
No, these are all groups.
Those are all groups.
Right. So it groups. So these are all the documents that were opened in 2018. These are all the documents that were opened earlier. So it groups by whatever you tell it in group.
Okay.
Especially
Okay.
in column view, you don't control the sorting.
Exactly. Can you, for a moment, go back to list view, please?
Yeah, list view, you sort separately. So here I am, I'm still grouped by date modified, but I can sort by other columns by clicking on that column. So,
Right.
so it's grouped by date modified and then sorted by size. So
or the date, whichever one of those.
Whichever column you click on.
Right. Exactly. Okay. All right. I think I'm. Because I mean, they improved it to make it more convenient for people who know what they're doing and are adept and can see things in front of their face, which I cannot always. And so instead of being just one long list that I could grope my way through, they fragmented into things that you looked at recently, things you haven't looked at in a long time.
Yeah.
Things you looked at when you're good mood, things
all
you
your
looked
folders
at
together, all your images together,
Right.
all your
Right.
PDFs
Right.
together. Yeah.
But so I guess I need to start by paying attention to whether I am truly in either list or column view, and then go from there.
Yeah.
Now,
so in any of the views, it's still grouping by the group you have it.
What's that business about the option key then? I'll just hover there for a second. See, it said, let's see. Hold down option to change the sort.
So yeah, but it's let's go to a list where we can tell. So right now it's sorted by kind. If I hold down the option key, I can sort by modified. Yeah, so that's the same as clicking on the modify column. When you're in column view, you can click on a column to change the sort. But when you're in column view, you can't change the sort because there's no buttons to change the sort with. So right now, so now if I go to option and so it's grouped by name, and now I can sort it by date modified.
Are you using the option key
Yep.
to make that other
Yeah, so if I
selection?
hold the option key down, now I'm going to sort this list. So with the option key off, it's grouped by kind. So the folders are first, and then the images are first. And then I hold the option key down, and it's sorted by date modified. So the newest folders are at the top. The newest images are at the top.
All right. So what it's doing is you have an initial sort choice, and then using the option key, you can superimpose on that initial choice.
Yeah, the initial choice is usually name. So alphabetical.
Way to sort.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the two-step process there. Thank you, sir.
If you show the view options command, you bring up another window that lets you change the grouping and the sorting with a menu separately.
In other words, if I up in my menu bar, go under view, and it'll give me choices like that?
Yeah, show view options, you get a new palette open. Which I'm only showing the one window. Can I share two windows at once? Let me see. No, I can't share that second window because it's a palette. It's not a window.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir.
Yep. I've always been annoyed by grouping. I don't know why. That's because I think because I knew how to sort. So I can sort by kind. So now it's grouped by kind, basically. All the folders are first, then all the images, then all the documents. So it's almost the same as using the group by kind. It just doesn't separate with headings for each different kind.
All right. Yeah.
The other thing, when you're grouping, you don't have the disclosure triangles to be able to open a folder. So if I turn the grouping to none, now I have little triangles and I can pop open a folder. I picked one with nothing in it. No, there they are. And you can see the contents of that folder, which you can't do when you're grouped, which is weird. There's some old pictures in here I haven't seen before. Dancing with the Woz. Let me go by icon here. So Woz was on Dancing with the Stars how many years ago, Shirley?
Oh, what, 5, 6, 7 years ago?
He got eliminated pretty early.
Picture. Get info or something of that picture?
Yeah, that was 2009 is when I saved it. I don't know if that's when it actually took place.
Well, it was then or earlier.
Yeah.
Well, I thought 5 or 6 years ago, I was way off.
Things are always longer than we think they are. I have some questions.
Okay.
Okay. What was
stop sharing here?
What was the name of that place in Honey Eye Falls you were talking about to get the iPad fixed?
iPad Rehab.
Okay. And have you heard of? Wait, let me write that down. I thought I wrote it down last time, but it wasn't there. Have you heard of We Break It, You Fix It? You break it, we fix it.
Yeah, it's a chain of independent stores where you can buy a franchise to their store. I have no idea.
Are they reliable?
Every store is completely different. I don't know what their training policies are. I don't know what's required to become a franchise.
Because a friend of mine went there and he said it was good, but
That specific one he went to, yeah. Each one is independently owned and franchised.
because there was the thing like, what was it? You buy like insurance for $25, you have to have it a month, and then you can get something fixed for $100.
But to buy the insurance, it has to be fully functional.
I don't know, because the one guy, he called the store and talked three-way with me, and I talked to one guy, and he said call back the next day to talk to another guy who knew more about the insurance. But when I called, I didn't get a person, so I don't know. That's why.
That's usually the way it works. Otherwise, it's insurance fraud.
Yeah, that would make sense. But I guess it depends if it's working at all or not working at all.
Yeah.
If it's working at all, if you just something's broken versus being completely broken.
Yeah.
So, and that guy told me that my iPhone 6s Plus will no longer work after March or something. Is that?
No.
No.
That's not right. Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe it's no longer supported.
I don't know. He said it wouldn't work anymore as a phone.
That's completely wrong.
Yeah.
Okay.
May not be supported, but with security updates and everything, I'm not sure if they Apple made it.
The 6S is still compatible with iOS 15.
Okay, so it should be.
Okay.
Maybe he meant that if you're running iOS 9 or something like that, it's not supported.
Don't know. Just said, oh, the 6S Plus won't work anymore after March.
He's
I don't
wrong.
know. Okay, that's good. Always better to have something that works than something that doesn't.
You said in March of next year?
Something like that.
Yeah, I mean, by that time, Apple may make that an obsolete item.
Not if it supports iOS 15.
So 6 is how old? For 6 years old?
Something like that.
6 or 7 years old.
Let me bring up my tracker database.
1 per year. That's 7 years minus 1, right?
Well, sometimes they had an S model in different years. 6S Plus came out in September of 2015. And it was discontinued in September of 2016 when the 7 came out.
But it's not obsolete for another
3 or 4 years.
Yeah, so it's okay. As long as it still works.
And even if it's obsolete, it will still work.
Yeah.
Eventually, the cell companies will stop supporting 4G, and then the 6S will stop working.
Are you talking about 4G or 3G, Steve?
Both. So the cell companies have stopped supporting 2G. They're still doing 3G, but I've been hearing some of the cell companies are stopping 3G. But the 6S will support 4G, so there's probably another at least 5 years where 4G will be supported before 5G is even available.
Right. Thank you. This hits me personally is that I have a little prepaid AT&T flip phone, cell phone, and I had a message from them a few months back that by February at the latest they'd stop supporting the 3G, and they were going to ship out free replacement phones with a 4G. And then a little while after that, I tried to make phone calls. In fact, I think it was during one of our Apple meetings. I was trying to call somebody, and it automatically redirected to customer service to get into the whole upgrade process to the 4G, and it would not let me make any other cell phone calls for the better part of a week until finally they actually did take the freeze or lock or whatever the hell it was off my phone.
Yep.
And I went into an AT&T store, and the guy said, "Oh, they're shipping phones. This is a couple of months ago. I haven't gotten a phone yet, so I ain't sweating that until about Christmas." But
So the FCC has a list. AT&T is shutting down 3G in February of 22.
Right.
Verizon is December of 22. T-Mobile is Sprint is shutting down January 22, and T-Mobile itself has not been announced that they're shutting down 3G or 2G. T-Mobile still supports 2G.
Now, here's another question on that subject. When 5G becomes more widely available, would they cease to support 4G given the problems with range of 5G and walls and things like that? Or would 4G continue to exist, do you think?
Yeah, so right now we're in 5G and 3G is shutting down in a year for some carriers. So probably when 6G comes out, then 4G will get short-ended.
Well, when those 5 and 6G things come out, does that mean that there's going to be the equivalent of a cell tower in every mailbox or what? You know,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, we don't know yet. Well,
range.
and that's the problem with 5G now is there's two flavors of it. There's basically the one that's based on current cell systems where you have a tower every couple of miles, and then there's the millimeter wave version where you need a tower every couple hundred feet. But because the towers are so close together, you can get really fast signals. That's why Wi-Fi in your house, you can get a gigabit transmission on your Wi-Fi because you're only usually less than 50 feet from the tower. Your little Wi-Fi router box, and so we don't know. Well, there probably is a 6G cellular plan, but we don't know how that's going to progress. Yep, 6G is currently under development. They have a logo for it already.
Do they say anything?
Don't we need 5 before 6?
Well, 5 is being rolled out. 6 is being developed.
Yeah. Do they say anything with the 6G about distance and how hard it's going to be to implement it?
Not yet. They're working on They're on terahertz waves for 6G. So right now we're at gigahertz. Oh, and China launched a satellite with 6G to test that. So at least it works to orbit.
But everybody's going to be talking Chinese.
Yeah.
Well, no, that raises an interesting question because, and I may be totally misinformed here, but my impression is that where we use cell towers in Europe or some parts of Europe, there's more use of like satellite phones. I don't know if they also use cell tower phones. I imagine they do.
Yeah.
But,
otherwise, no one who traveled to Europe could use their phone.
And yet people are able to.
Yeah.
With the right SIM card.
Yeah.
So, but if you start getting into terahertz waves or something like that, does that in effect mean that people's cell phones will all be satellite phones or what?
Well, no. The frequency doesn't matter. It's the protocols that matter. So right now, 3G is using 1.9 gigahertz. 5G is using 39 gigahertz. Interesting, they don't tell me 4G. The higher the frequency, the shorter the wavelength, and the more data you can put on that wave.
But does it also
4G is 2.3 gigahertz and 2.5 gigahertz.
But does that also limit the penetrating ability, so to speak?
Yes. Yep. The shorter the wavelength, the less it can penetrate.
Yeah. So in other words, as you go up to 5G and 6G, it sounds like.
Yep. Well, that's why they all fall back to 850 megahertz, so that it can go longer distances and penetrate more.
So all the systems do that?
Yeah.
I know that T-Mobile at one point was talking about how they also use, I think, a 600.
Yeah, they go to 600. Yeah, so CDMA. Part of the problem is there's two standards in the U.S. CDMA and GSM. CDMA goes to 600 megahertz, and GSM goes to 850 megahertz. So they're all on different frequency bands, so they don't interfere with each other. So CDMA uses 2.5 and 2.8 gigahertz, and GSM uses 3.9 gigahertz. And some of that has been mixed with 4G. 4G uses the same protocols that were previously used with separate GSM and CDMA. So that's why you can buy one phone now and use it on any carrier. It used to be that AT&T and T-Mobile were GSM, and Sprint and Verizon were CDMA. So if you got a Sprint phone, it would only work on Sprint or Verizon because that was the technology it used. Now with 4G, you can use any phone on any carrier. They've basically merged the two technologies together.
If you buy one of the cellular iPads, can you take it to any company, or do you have to buy a company specific one? Like, can you use them on like track phones and things, or is it only for the big companies?
You can use it with any company that has a SIM card, which is pretty much all of them. You either buy it for a specific cellular carrier, or you buy it unlocked to work with any carrier. And actually, they're starting to come with an eSIM now, so it doesn't use a physical SIM, it uses an electronic SIM. And it works with pretty much all the carriers.
Do you know how to put iTunes on a Chromebook?
You can't.
You can't?
No, it needs Mac OS or Windows OS. Google has their own media player for playing media.
I asked the Apple guy, like when I called Apple to ask a question, he said you could use a Chromebook, but I couldn't figure out.
You can use a Chromebook to play music. You cannot use a Chromebook for iTunes.
Okay, well, since we're down to what, 5 people? I'm going to officially end the meeting, but we can still ask questions if you need to. Does that sound okay?
I need to step away for a moment.
I have to go anyway. So
it's about 9:36.
Yep.
All right.
Good night, Bob.
And I'm going to shut down the broadcasting. Yeah, I'm going to shut down the broadcasting. So bye to
Saturday.
Bye to Facebook. Well, I'll keep the Zoom open, but I'm just going to stop broadcasting to Facebook and YouTube.
Bob's gone.